This is your daily scripture for July 24th. My name is Henry Loke. This is God's Feeding Station. Great to be with you again today. Happy Friday, end of another week. Hope you had a good week. We are continuing in the Gospel of Luke chapter 20. One day, as Jesus was teaching the people in the temple and preaching the gospel, the chief priests and the scribes, with the elders, came up and said to him, "Tell us, by what authority you do these things, and who it is that gave you this authority?" He answered them, "I also will ask you a question. Now tell me, was the baptism of John from heaven or from man?" And they discussed it with one another, saying, "If we say from heaven, he will say, 'Why did you not believe him?' But if we say from man, all the people will stone us to death, for they are convinced that John was a prophet." So they answered that they did not know where it came from. And Jesus said to them, "Neither will I tell you by what authority I do these things." And he began to tell the people this parable. A man planted a vineyard and lent it out to tenants and went into another country for a long while. When the time came, he sent a servant to the tenants so that they would give him some of the fruit of the vineyard. But the tenants beat him and sent him away empty-handed. And he sent another servant, but they also beat and treated him shamefully and sent him away empty-handed. And he sent yet a third. This one also they wounded and cast out. Then the owner of the vineyard said, "What shall I do? I will send my beloved son. Perhaps they will respect him." But when the tenants saw him, they said to themselves, "This is the heir. Let us kill him, so that the inheritance may be ours." And they threw him out of the vineyard and killed him. What then will the owner of the vineyard do to them? He will come and destroy those tenants and give the vineyard to others. When they heard this, they said, "Surely not." But he looked directly at them and said, "What then is this that is written? The stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. Everyone who falls on that stone will be broken to pieces, and when it falls on anyone, it will crush him." The scribes and the chief priests sought to lay hands on him at that very hour, for they perceived that he had told this parable against them, but they feared the people. So they watched him and sent spies who pretended to be sincere, that they might catch him in something he said, so as to deliver him up to the authority and jurisdiction of the governor. So they asked him, "Teacher, we know that you speak and teach rightly, and show no partiality, but truly teach the way of God. Is it lawful for us to give tribute to Caesar or not?" But he perceived their craftiness and said to them, "Show me a denarius. Whose likeness and inscription does it have?" They said, "Caesar's." He said to them, "Then render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's." And they were not able in the presence of the people to catch him in what he said, but marveling at his answer, they became silent. There came to him some Sadducees, those who deny that there is a resurrection. And they asked him a question, saying, "Teacher, Moses wrote for us that if a man's brother dies, having a wife but no children, the man must take the widow and raise up offspring for his brother. Now there were 7 brothers. The first took a wife and died without children. And the second and the third took her, and likewise all 7 left no children and died. Afterward, the woman died also. In the resurrection, therefore, whose wife will the woman be? For the 7 had her as wife." And Jesus said to them, "The sons of this age marry and are given in marriage. But those who are considered worthy to attain to that age and to the resurrection from the dead neither marry nor are given in marriage, for they cannot die anymore, because they are equal to angels and are sons of God, being sons of the resurrection. But that the dead are raised, even Moses showed in the passage about the bush, where he calls the Lord the God of Abraham and the God of Isaac and the God of Jacob. Now he is not the God of the dead, but of the living, for all who live to him." Then some of the scribes answered, "Teacher, you have spoken well," for they no longer dared to ask him any question. But he said to them, "How can they say that the Christ is David's son? For David himself says in the book of Psalms, 'The Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies your footstool.' David thus calls him Lord. So how is he his son? And in the hearing of all the people, he said to his disciples, beware of the scribes who like to walk around in long robes and love greetings in the marketplaces and the best seats in the synagogues and the places of honor at feasts, who devour widows' houses and for a pretense make long prayers. They will receive the greater condemnation. At this point, Jesus has already fielded one trick question after another from people trying to trip him up and use those traps as a way to condemn him. And so this time it's the Sadducees who turn up. Now, they're a different breed from the Pharisees. They are mostly priests and aristocrats who controlled the temple. They worked with Rome to keep their position secure. And they accepted only the 5 books of Moses as authoritative, rejected a lot of what the Pharisees taught, including resurrection of the dead, angels, and didn't believe in any kind of afterlife. So when they came to Jesus about resurrection, it's worth knowing this up front. They don't believe in the thing that they're asking. They just want to use it to try to embarrass the Pharisees, embarrass Jesus, and just, again, put an end to Jesus as a reputable figure once and for all. So the question is built on Old Testament custom. If a married man died without children, his brother was expected to marry his widow, raise the children of his brother. That comes from Deuteronomy 25. But the Sadducees take this to an absurd extreme, right? 7 brothers, 1 widow, all of them dying childless in turn. So in the resurrection, they ask, whose wife will the woman be? For 7 had her as wife. Then it's kind of clever on their part. They expect Jesus to either look foolish or undercut the whole idea of resurrection in trying to answer it. So it's not, it suits their purpose, but Jesus is, he's too wise for them. He says quite simply and blank, right to their, he tells them point blank, your question rests on faulty assumptions. You think that those who die and are resurrected are going to marry. But he says those who are considered worthy to attain that age and to the resurrection from the dead neither marry nor are given in marriage, for they cannot die anymore. Marriage and the need to raise up heirs exists in this life because death makes that necessary. In the resurrection, there is no death. So the entire premise behind their question doesn't apply. And Jesus isn't saying marriage is somehow unworthy. Excuse me. He's just turning the whole framework of the Sadducees on its head, right? They're trying to use morality and inheritance, urgency of continuing a family line in a place where nobody dies. It has no place there. And then he does something that's really, really cool. He answers from one of the very 5 books that they claim as their only authority. And he points to the burning bush, where God tells Moses he's the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, long after all 3 men had died. And Jesus tells them straight up, he's not the God of the dead, he's the God of the living. Right? If God is calling them their God generations after their deaths, then in some sense, however that is, they're still alive to him. So the resurrection the Sadducees dismissed was hiding in plain sight, right, in the text that they supposedly trusted in the most. And it's no wonder then that some of the scribes, probably Pharisees who believed in the resurrection, responded, "Teacher, you have spoken well." And then after that, Luke says nobody dared ask Jesus anything. You think they would have quit a long time ago, but they kept coming at him. But Jesus isn't done here. He turns the question around and asks one of his own. And it's aimed at how everybody, not just the Sadducees, think about the Messiah. The most popular title for the coming Messiah was what? We all know it, right? Son of David. Blind beggar at Jericho used it. The crowd shouted it when he entered Jerusalem on a donkey. Everyone knew that Messiah was coming from David's line. Jesus doesn't deny that. But what he does, he quotes Psalm 110, where David himself wrote, "The Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet." And then Jesus asks the obvious question. David calls him Lord, so how was he his son? Now, in that culture, and we know this from other parables, son doesn't outrank his father. The honor runs the other way. So why would David, who's considered the greatest king probably to ever rule over anyone, call his own descendant Lord, which is a title of authority normally given upwards, not downwards? And the answer Jesus is pointing them toward is this. Messiah isn't simply one more branch on David's family tree, right? A great king, just another great king in the line of David, maybe just a little better. God himself invites Jesus to sit at his right hand, which is a position of honor and authority. And it's given to him by God, which goes far beyond any position any of David's descendants ever held. Messiah is David's son by birth, but David's superior in spiritual rank. And he's set apart and exalted by God to a position no ordinary person could ever occupy. So you have in this passage the same lesson from two different directions. Sadducees put God in a box that leaves no room for resurrection. The crowds put Messiah in a box that made him just a slightly better version of David. And Jesus steps outside, well, he keeps stepping outside all the boxes they try to put him in. He's not bound by death. He's not contained by family rank and inheritance. He's bigger than both. And this is what we do all the time. We build these boxes that are manageable for us. We put God in them, and then we're surprised and confused when he breaks those boxes apart and does things outside of those boxes, expectations that we have. So I guess for us, the question is the picture we have of Jesus, is it just a bit too small? Do we not really understand all that Jesus and all that God can do? Have a great rest of your day. Have a good weekend. Lord willing, we'll chat on Monday. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.